This is Duke University.
So what I want to do is the Digital Media and Learning Initiative by the MacArthur Foundation has put out some wonderful literature, and Mimi Ito led this study where they talked to kids. She had, I don't know how many researchers working with her over a 3-year period to see what kids were doing, like with cell phones and video games and etc. And so what I did, just an informal survey, my godson is 19 years old, and I asked him to talk to his friends, and so it was really cute the way he did it, because he didn't know. He kind of stratified the survey, because he said, well, I talked to some elementary school and middle school and high school and early college, all African American. Most had connectivity in the home. Some were from different schools. And the two main things that stood out to me is, this was eye-opening for me. A lot of kids don't feel they need a computer. If they have a smartphone, that's all they need. I said, what about email? A teacher, maybe someone we haven't talked to in a long. It's like writing a letter to your aunt. You know, it's the as opposed. It's like, but they text. They text. And I said, and his brother, William, who is 17, isn't a chatty fellow, but I said, oh, well, he says, no, because if you're trying to talk to a girl and you don't really have the words, well, you can text because you have more time to think. I was like, oh, so texting is enabling the courtship process. And so I said, well, what about, if you have to do a paper, or he says, well, we'll do that. But if the teacher doesn't ask us to write a paper, to type it, then we're going to write it by hand. And I said, well, what about doing your research, like going out? And he says, well, they're so busy teaching to the test because Florida has that FSTAT. Like, if you don't pass that test, you don't graduate. I was going to say something, Brother Jeb, but I won't go there. And so the teachers are so busy teaching to the test that they don't really have time to sit down and give you the computer skills. And then when you get to a college, you're expected to know this already. So where do they go to learn? Where do they get these skills from? And it's not by osmosis. So what I want to do is use a culturally specific approach, like the oral tradition of the African American community, the call and response, the griot from Africa, and kind of look into one thing out of that report, of the social practices in which media engagement is embedded. And so don't you love what Damien did? The remix culture, how to kind of take that, for instance, with hip hop, the technology in hip hop was vocational education, where Grandmaster Flash was a student there, and he took discarded pieces and created the whole turntablism with the 2 turntables. And Kool Herc was another one who would go out into the parks and take this. And so technology that wasn't created for X, but could be used for X, Y, and Z, what can these kids come up with if given the right tool set? And so that's something that I want to look at and get their narratives, and actually just kind of hang out, mess around with these groups of kids and see what they have to say. Because one thing I asked my godson, I said, so, what do you guys think of technology? And it's basically a tool. Just not sitting around thinking about what can I do so great with technology. As you know, their main thing is video games, but the different ages, it varied. Like he told me, junior high kids, handhelds are still cool, but as you're older, not so much. The Wii game, girls are more into it than guys. Guys like I think there's one called Smash Up or something like that. They like the fighting ones or the competitive ones. He said, although when you get with a girl that's competitive, like a boxing one, and I said, oh, because she can beat you in a virtual environment. And he's like, yeah. So I'm not saying that, you know, his survey was by any means scientific and all-inclusive, but he did, some of the stuff that he found is consistent with the national trends and with some of the work that in this digital media and learning project. So this is me hanging out with the kids and just finding out what they're into and what they're interested in. And the angle that I want to go down is the three things of play. You know, there's theories about play, and play is interactive and will make you come online and use it. Production, I'm more interested in what can provoke our kids to be producers and not just consumers, our consumer culture. And identity, how, you know, what do they feel? How do they feel about themselves? And also, there was some controversial research and literature around the whole acting white thing. And Fran Fordham did it at a high school. She went and talked to kids. And then some researchers at UNC, as a matter of fact, did some research that kind of refuted that. And so there's a back and forth. I just know from my personal life, when I was a kid, I was accused of that, but like I said, I was in a town that I was determined to get out of. And so it's like, tell me what you want. But I am out of here. And so the whole identity thing and how that shapes and you know, does that translate over to that? And even I remember President Obama mentioning something about that at the Democrat national speech when he said, you know, we need to be more creative. And so making this the norm and not the oh my God factor. I have a girlfriend who said I could tell this story because when this happened to her, she was like, oh my God, this is what Allison's talking about. Her name is Tiara Jones, and she's a professor at Rutgers, and she's a writer of fiction. Highly recommend her books. And she went to Bed-Stuy to get her hair done. She wears her hair natural, and she left her BlackBerry home. And this was her first time seeing this stylist, and she didn't have the address or any information. She just remembered the name of the shop. And so she stopped about 30 people. No one had a smartphone. And this wasn't the poorest of the poor. This was working class black folks. A lot of them had the pay-as-you-go phone, which does not have any internet access. Could not call information. She even, like, they took her over to this house. There was a birthday party going on. They could offer her food, but they could not offer her, because they didn't have it at their house. And they even called across the street, hey, do you have internet? She finally found one person where she could dial information and get the address and everything of the shop, but just was stunned that this, you know, was going on. So a lot of assumptions are made, and you know, something I did ask my godson about, I said, what about Second Life? You know, because we as academics, we think it's fabulous. And he said, not so much. And I was like, why? He said, because there's nothing to do once you get there. See, there's that play, that interactivity once again. So that's why it's like that, to me, is the hook.
Produced by Duke University. Online at duke.edu.